expected to last till July 31st. And also another news which came today was TCS, which is one of the largest employers with about 4.5 lakh employees. They intend 75% of their workforce will go on a work from home environment. Considering that means more than 3 lakh employees in work from home employment. In this scenario, the whole ball game of work from home takes on a different turn. What it means is that there are a lot of security challenges and issues, and during the discussion over the next 1 hour, we will try to arrive at certain guidelines that work from home can utilize during this time. What are the security challenges in this work from home environment? Before I put the first question to Kanishk, a couple of hygiene announcements. I'm trying to get as much information as possible. Please restrict each answer to a couple of minutes. And towards the end, we will take up a couple of questions from the audience also. Kanishk, my first question to you is, what sort of work from home guidelines or best practices or a framework can be put in place, and where does security play a role in that framework?
Best practices with respect to work from home, I think security has to be built in by design. So far, we see that security has been more of an afterthought. And if you look at the IT managers today, the issues they face, they are more involved in solving operational issues than focusing on security. So, for example, certain applications themselves are insecure by design. So when we use such applications, we will find that the information of the users, the recordings, the login credential, all that is hacked and is available in darknet today. And it can get misused. So if you look at some time back, while we were doing some security research in dark web, we found out that the credentials of WHO employees and their communication got leaked. So security has to be built in. So aspects such as multi-factor authentication have to be taken into consideration. Allowing security to be available where you have low bandwidth connectivity is also something that needs to be worked upon. Some of the key elements we would look at is that the applications which are going to be used, they have to be lightweight applications which could be used on browsers, which could be used on mobile-based devices. Their passwords, the way they are encrypted, the way they are stored, those have to be designed in a manner that those are strong. So the encryptions have to be strong. The storage of text should not be in plain formats. Also, with respect to certain open source applications which are getting used today, it's important that desktop security is something where more focus needs to go, because a lot of people will be working from home.
Thank you. My next question is for Himanshu. I'll ask you, what according to you are the two most critical security vulnerabilities in our work from home environment?
I would like to mention about the network security first. Organizations have deployed multiple controls over the years. We've been able to manage the potential attacks. We've been able to, put multi-layer controls on our office networks. But now suddenly, while this was done, and this was done to ensure that the threat vector is taken care largely, but suddenly there's, huge workforce who's working from home. And when we are working from home, we are essentially either connecting via the home Wi-Fi routers or the mobile hotspots, which again, losing on the great effort that we have put in securing our organizations or office network per se. So this is one vulnerability, and consider this. Today, at homes, we are not only connecting our office laptops, we are connecting our home laptops, our mobile phones, smart devices, smart TVs, smart lighting solutions, baby monitors, and whatnot. So we don't know whether the right set of security configurations, the password protections are enabled on those devices or not. So these could be the backdoors for any attackers to get into the organization's asset, which is currently connected to work from home. So in my view, I think first and foremost, we have to put in an effort. So this is largely two partners. From the technology point of view, we have to ensure that usage of a strong VPN mechanism, and multi-factor authentication, like Anish was mentioning, especially for the users who are security administrators or system administrators who are actually going to access the core systems to keep them up and running. The other aspect I would like to talk about is the overwhelming number of coronavirus related details that are available, be in the form of applications, be in form of websites, web pages, research papers, real-time monitoring, and so on and so forth. A lot of security organizations have come up with the result that almost 70 to 75% of the domains registered with the name coronavirus or COVID-19, they are malicious. And this is a basic human tendency, right? If there's something going on across my city, across my town, across my state, and globally, I need to know the information. So the hackers are actually playing on the this curiosity of human. And there's a huge campaign which is going on in form of sending phishing emails, targeted emails, to lure user to click on those coronavirus detailed graphs, the real-time events, and so on and so forth. So to tackle this, organizations have to build a strong user awareness mechanism. This is one. And also at the background, especially on the mailing systems, the anti-spam, malware and anti-spoofing and anti-spamming mechanisms have to, again, the administrators have to relook at the configuration settings. So maybe from a standard setting to a more secure setting over the email systems is something that is the need of the hour during work. So these are the two essentially pointers which I would want to mention.
Okay. Carrying an extension of that point, my next question is for Ashish. Much before COVID, we had already what we call an extended enterprise. The whole ecosystem of an enterprise would include a lot of partners, suppliers, vendors, and who has their own individual network, which gets connected to the network of the organization itself. And that's why the extended ecosystem. For a CISO, it has been a security challenge always to sort of ensure that there is no compromise in that extended enterprise network. Now, in light of increasing work from home and heterogeneous environment, what are the additional challenges for a CISO's, from a CISO's perspective, to sort of ensure there is no vulnerability? Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you, Rajneesh, for your question. These are very, very different and I won't say difficult, but different times. But it sets the onset of a new normal, and this is the way we are going to operate in times to come. The matrix of security up till now for any security organization has been ensuring the CIA, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But with this new culture coming in, that entire matrix gets inverse, wherein availability takes over from integrity and confidentiality. And as long as we are people who are ensuring the security landscape of an organization, as long as we are aligned with that goal from the organization, I think these are very, very interesting times too, because it has taken many years to run a lot of digital practices across multiple organizations. But there are I'm sure all of you must have seen a WhatsApp joke running around that what took digitization in your organization, whether it is the CIO, CTO, or the COVID-19. And most of the people agree that COVID-19 has been the biggest digital transformation hook for an organization to move toward digitization. People from all levels of organization, people from all age group of the organizations have embraced technology and platforms within a span of a week time, or maybe even lesser than that. But from a security standpoint, it brings different dynamics. Up till now, our focus has always been to ensure the perimeter security and the endpoint security. This approach needs to change. We need to look at new framework like zero trust based access to people to your data centers. Only the need based access is given to people, instead of having open access available for anybody to sprawl around tier data center. I think Kanish touched on the points where he mentioned that we should only move to SSL and TLS based communication rather than open text based data exchange. While they have been basics, but there are a lot of emphasis also, which we are also driving in our organization, is to ensure that end user is part of this whole journey. There's a collaboration culture which is being brought on to ensure that in this entire process, end user is there along with you. Because on one side, you can take the tools and systems of the organization from X level to Y level, but if your user still remains on the understanding of X level, clicking on a phishing mail and providing their credentials, and that's the biggest mistake which can cripple down the entire system of the organization. What we are doing is to in this whole process collaborate with end users and ensuring that they are aware of this new threat landscape which are coming up as alongside of this COVID-19.
That's a very important point you mentioned about the collaboration with the end users, because I presume in a work from home environment, these end users are going to be probably the most critical aspect of it. In that vein, I'll go on to Harish now. A couple of areas I'd like to discuss from a hospitality industry standpoint and in a work from home environment. What, according to you, are the most critical vulnerability? And also, I would like to know about any smooth running of a business without any disruption depends on sort of a very proper risk assessment. So in the light of the new situation, new work from home business model, how would that risk assessment aspect change?
Thank you, CXO TV. Thank you, Rajneeshji, for organizing a wonderful session like this. Security is a concern of everyone as of now. And to be very frank with you, portal risk is very different from IT, ITS, BFSI, energy, government, and others. We are in people business. We need everyone in office generally. Very few people are supposed to work from home. And to be very frank with you, our industry was never prepared for this. But somehow we manage a show. We are keeping eye on our mail servers. We are checking all the databases, like what we have of customers, other things. But cloud has really played an important role. Most of our things are on cloud, which can monitor from any place. That is the wonder. If this would have happened 10 years back, then I don't feel that our industry would have been in position to serve our guests or do anything, whether reservation system, whether internet booking engine, or whether it's related to anything, any requirement of guests. Having said that, in our corporate office, we have got a lot of security, layer 3 switches, firewall, antivirus, servers. Security is there. At home, all those things are not possible. Like Himanshu said, your Wi-Fi connection at home is not safe. What we have done is we have created a document. We have guided our GMs of the hotels, all our road warriors at the moment, to ensure that they switch off their PCs when not in use. Some practices are there. Secondly, they switch off the Wi-Fi when not required, because there are a lot of rumors that Zoom is not safe or XYZ is not safe. Teams is better. Google Hands is better. People have different concepts, different understandings. So we keep on educating them by sending different mails. Now a lot of mails, phishing mails are coming, which says about Corona, which says about I'm from World Health Organization. Everyone is trying to fool now. So we keep on checking our mail server. That's a best practice. We make sure that we educate all the road warriors or corporate employees who are laptop users that please switch off the laptop. Make sure that they do not go to any website or any message which can put them into some sort of honey trap.
Now coming to Manzar, one aspect we all know that work from home gives a benefit of flexibility. But at the same time, this flexibility brings its own security challenges. Now, as a CISO of an organization, you would have a defined security policy in place. Now, when the model of business or the operation itself changes to a work from home mode, how will the security policies change? What are going to be the main changes in the dynamics of these policies?
I would say that in IT, we have never been put to test in such a big foray of, the entire world has completely activated the BCP, never ever thought of. So we are currently living in an era of BCP, and as Harish said and Ashish said, this is the start of a new normal. So we are going to experience, work from home has actually shifted the whole paradigm. We as a IT security personnel used to think about the security. It has shifted. We held the model, the triangle of CIA too close to our heart in the same order: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which we see that during the initial days when the lockdown was activated, the entire triangle was inverted. So everybody, huddled together, and they started putting it first availability, second integrity, and third confidentiality. But that time, I'm sure that IT community has put together the best hands, and they have come out of that initial days wherein the AIC was getting a norm, and we have started focusing on the window of threat vector which hackers are going to exploit, and they are very, very meticulously trying. Let me tell you, at this time, you have seen very recently tremendous amount of hits coming in from certain countries. We have a malware, a very potent malware like Maze, that has been unleashed. So apart from brute force, this also actually uses other windows, other aspects of the system. So IT community has been quick to react and become proactive in blocking these attempts. And I would like to attribute it partially to the benefit of the flexibility of work from home that you initially asked in the question. So initially the focus, the entire industry, may it be information security or OT security, IT and OT security was completely built upon the perimetric security. A certain small chunk, I would say, was on data or the mobility security kind of stuff. So now the paradigm is shifting from perimetric security to building the security around the data. So data, wherever it is; second, from how it is transmitted; and third, where it is transacted. So these are the three places at which we need to look upon as the data, and we have to actually, all of my previous speakers have addressed this point, that there are two places to avenues to hit upon the security aspect. One is the user end, who are they're operating from the home currently. Other is the IT infrastructure, where your largest chunk of servers, your application, your ERP is running, may it be on cloud, may it be on on-prem. So the user awareness, as a CIO of the organization, I'm extremely thrilled and pleased when somebody in my organization comes and writes to me or calls me and say that, see, I've received this mail, it looks suspicious. So that, I feel, is the success which my team is doing. Day and night they're working on campaigning, they're working on the awareness program. So that is the measure, one of the measures of success, that people come up to you. As Ashish said, that people have very quickly embraced the digital transformation, never ever seen before, and it's a golden opportunity for IT. Now, user awareness program is one of the things which has to be the paramount in the policy of security, IT security. There has to be constant awareness programs against phishing. People like us, we have been issuing advisories to our teams and extended teams that these are the links. Be wary of the tiny URLs. In fact, I wrote yesterday as well, that those bit.ly kind of thing, because you don't know where it leads to. Threats basically remained the same, but the vector and magnitude has changed. Now there is a need to protect from outside threat, as well as internal threat has always been there. So nothing has changed, but only the security paradigm has shifted. It will be helpful to have advanced threat protection. It will be make employees aware of the phishing risk, donation scams, as Harish ji said. So there has to be also regular patch management, especially on the collaboration tool. Like to Zoom, we have very recently seen there has been a lot of UNC path injection and all those things have come up. So those collaboration tool and other tool has to be patched up regularly, backups, and enabling two-factor or multi-factor authentications. And not to forget that we still, while entire organization is operating from home, including IT personnel, but please remember there is a data center sitting out there. Please ensure that data center parameters are maintained, the temperature is maintained, the perimetric security, the peripheral security, all those things are still of paramount importance. But yes, the IT policies have to be spun around the data, those three aspects of data which I earlier talked about, and the perimetric security takes a slightly backseat.
Now, you talked about some of the tools. I'm coming back to Kanishk. Since you have been working in a consulting mode and you have been working with a lot of organizations as well as solution providers, what are the sort of the best digital tools that are available in the current scenario that can help the CISOs and the CIOs to work better on these work from home challenges?
So I think a lot of us have been working on hard tokens for authentication, and managing hard tokens has been an issue. So moving to soft token based authentication, particularly around using VPN, is one model. We have used a lot of these apps which can provide you soft token based authentication. The other could be certain tools which could be used for carrying out remote scanning of your machines. So when your machines which are connecting to your Active Directory, say in a Microsoft environment, you can use that to check whether your group policies are enforceable on those machines or not. If people are, so work from home would also allow people to access a lot of sites, use official machines for communication which is non-essential or which is not part of professional life. So they might end up browsing sites where there could be security hazards, or there could be, be becoming vulnerable to malicious actors. So doing remote scanning of those machines, doing vulnerability assessment, penetration testing is important. The other aspect which is very much also important is to look at your DMGs, the way you have designed your DMG zone. So how do you identify threats? The mechanism where we look at monitoring devices is eventually moving out. The world is moving today to behavioral analytics. So looking at behavioral analytics tools today is one way. So moving to managed services based model where behavioral analytics is being done. So if you look at some of the popular companies today, such as Google and Facebook, they do not monitor devices. They look at behavioral anomalies. So they can look at traffic patterns to analyze what kind of data is going in and what kind of data is going out. So using certain open source tools, particularly in terms of what is being accessed by your employees while they are on the internet, while working from home, could be another best practice. So open source intelligence tools could be used to find out what data sources are being accessed, how much of them are vulnerable, then issuing advisories to them. These advisories could be in form of daily updates, which can go, for example, Maze ransomware, which recently hit an ITITA service provider. Can that impact some of the other companies, or any other new ransomware which is coming? Can that have an impact on a particular business or a particular service line? Would make a vital role. Last but not the least, human is considered as the weakest chain in security. So, doing webinars, creating awareness, particularly about best practices while you're browsing internet, while using machines, while doing work from home is very much important. So aspects such as how do you prevent users from being phished? How do you prevent users from clicking malicious link? How do you ensure that the applications which they access, they need to check whether those applications are fake? So, activities such as cyber squatting. Cyber squatting is an activity where you can find out if, the URL that you're using, the web application that you're using, are people registering similar applications and trying to redirect traffic to them. So cyber squatting is one activity. Aspects such as threat hunting can also find out insider threats. So these are some of the best practices which can be used.
Coming to Ashish now, one of the panelists earlier discussed about the importance of the end users in that collaboration effect. So, work from home model as a CISO, how easy or how difficult it is to manage and monitor these remote workers?
It is complex, but it is not difficult. provided you have the right tool and the data visibility available, it can be managed, pretty well. I mean, if you don't have the source of getting the visibility of what's going on the network, who is connecting from when and where on what device, what is the device posture while connecting to your infra, is it as per the standard benchmark which you had set, or is it coming with a legacy setup? For example, a Windows XP machine connecting to your intranet over a VPN connection, or a machine without having antivirus or the latest patches. I think as long as you have the right set of tools available which can give you visibility of the data streams across the connectivity of people who are coming and getting served from your data center legitimately, I think it's not very complex. Yes, there are on the end user side, there are certain complications which keep coming. For example, a desktop users at a home that doesn't have maybe a UPS, or the internet connectivity issues on the end user side. I think those are operational issues which are certainly there, because at the same time you are trying to connect and work on your enterprise applications while your kids are trying to do their online classes, and your family is trying to watch a Netflix on the same Wi-Fi connection. How do you manage that complexity? There are various organizations who have taken different approaches toward it. So I know some organizations have gone ahead and given credits to people to just go and buy a new internet connection dedicated to Office, because their enterprise applications were only served on a Windows 10 Pro machine, while the organization erstwhile had given them only Windows 10 standard machine. So they have given a one-time credit to people to go ahead and upgrade their Windows from standard to professional, to ensure that the organizational compliance is there in place. But all of those strategic decisions can only be taken once you have the visibility of what's running on your network, and what are the challenges you are up to. If you have the visibility of that entire data, I don't think it's very, very complex.
There are different devices in an extended ecosystem. Since people are working from home, they will be accessing the network through a variety of devices. So how critical is to the function of managing these devices in a work from home environment?
World of BYOD, bring your own device. Those restrictions of don't take photo, don't do this, buy only BlackBerry, those days are gone. We can only load our application or mobile device management application, so that we know that whatever information is there of company is not transferred to personal. There can be two different boxes, one for official, one for personal. Now, work from home needs special security architecture, home to office or to cloud. Security at endpoint is very important. Generally, most of the organizations focus on connectivity and tunnels, VPN, CASB, etc. But without the control at endpoint, they are all useless. Once on internet, it is open to hackers. Another point is, what if user is accessing critical applications and saves data on endpoint and take a copy if he's working from home? There has to be some control to regulate this. So now, post-COVID, a lot of new changes will happen to secure that any moment you may have to be in office, or you may be a road warrior somewhere. Cloud access security brokers, also known as CASB, acts as a security control point for cloud-based applications. Going beyond security, it is essential to quantify productivity of users to find over or underutilization of applications, say saving on optimization of licenses, or user. We can check whether he's really working, how much time he spent on application. A lot of appraisals can be done based on his work on applications. This can help organization to know who is really performing or not. Today, IT can help in reducing the cost of operation by assuming that maximum workforce can work from home, or workforce can be reduced by the help of automation, as long as we can assure them regulatory requirements of data security and making application usage utilization based.
We have already heard from one of the panelists about the importance of assigning different levels of user rights has been a common norm in organizations. Maybe in a work from home environment, it becomes even more crucial. what is the importance of one, identity management, and two, these assigning different kinds of rights, different kinds of users in this environment?
So work from home or no work from home, I think identity and access management is a key control when we talk about the information security domain as an overall. But when we are especially talking about work from home kind of scenario, it becomes more crucial, considering the open access over the public network. And think about it, my system administrator may be accessing over a weak Wi-Fi router or weakly configured Wi-Fi router. He or she is accessing the SAP server back at the data center. So this is essentially important. And continuing to the point which Ashish mentioned, I would say that organizations need to adopt RBAC, which is role-based access control mechanism, that methodology, and ensuring that the philosophy of least privilege accesses. So by default, even if you're at the executive director or system administrator level, by default, the least privilege access methodology has to be put in place. In addition to that, we have to pay close attention to the potential brute force attacks, especially the suspicious traffic from strange locations, even if nobody is traveling these days. So we have to have some kind of monitoring system put in place for any suspicious attempts of wrong login or failed login attempts, and take necessary actions wherever some blockages happen. So I would say identity and access management and both rights management is equally important. And like Harish said, that gone are the eras when you were actually configuring your data which is only accessible on Blackberries and organizational devices. The data is available anywhere and everywhere. So we have to have a mechanism to first authorize the right set of people, have some kind of identity and access management system, ensuring they are there for all applications. Plus, we have to also take into consideration some monitoring is put in place. If somebody is trying to download certain data, somebody is trying to access certain pages, certain applications which he or she is not authorized. Was it a legitimate attempt, or was it a script running behind? Was there some backdoor entry being tried to put in place by some malware and so on and so forth? So a combination of a framework plus a combination of some tools, monitoring tools, and timely actions is the need of the hour.
Coming to you, Manzar, 2 points. During your earlier point, you mentioned about the importance of the data centers and some of the processes running there. And Harish talked about the automation part also. So extending my earlier question to you, when you say the security policies have not changed, but the vector and management of them have changed. So my question is, will increasing automation of the security systems and security policies help when work from home will become the new normal for organizations? What is your view on increasing automation of security?
Very interesting question, Rajneesh. Thanks for asking that one. So, given the trend of the epidemic which we are currently on, and the demonstrated productivity during the work from home which we have seen recently, especially in the support functions and ITS industry, I could not agree more that work from home is there to stay. As we have seen today with the TCS announcement, we are it reaffirms my belief that it is here to stay, initially due to compulsion and then as a way of increasing the productivity. So as you said, there is a large chunk of time of CISO and IT admins which is getting consumed into doing manually, manual activity of patch management, configuration management, data protection, awareness campaigns, blocking of ports, spammer IDs, IP addresses, and nowadays, MD5 hashes, which are, suspicious hashes, keeping an eye on the security events as it unfolds. You have to keep an eye on to different forums, different sites, different advisories, wherein which, like a cyber threat intelligence. So you have to gather that. So for the sustained cyber security, in case of work from home becoming a norm going forward, it would no longer be a manual domain. for a medium to large enterprise because of the bandwidth consumed and the it gives a lot of stress on the system to keep yourself updated to that level, to that extent, seeing even monitoring the behavioral pattern, traffic transaction through the user computer, which is getting worked upon from home. So thus there is definitely a need of automating the cybersecurity front, because home is now the new office. So it is going to be here. We have seen that there is a tremendous increase on MS Teams user. Google Hangout is 25 times higher. Zoom has crossed $35 billion in share pricing and all. So these are, I'm talking about the collaborative tools, because it gives us a slight idea about how and to the extent it is getting used. Now, if we come to a avenue of the cyber security automation, so I would strongly suggest that, see, we already have, when we say we, then IT fraternity already have analytical algorithms which we are using very actively for prescriptive, suggestive and predictive analytics. But as of now, in the domain of information security, we have not done to a larger extent. It has started now. We, in fact, as an organization, are working with our partners in security to do that. So, see, the inputs, we can have an algorithm, the analytical algorithm, which sits in the core. It listens to the cyber threat intelligence on all across the globe, or the hits which your firewall is taking on the external IPs. Maybe from the vector has increased from certain CIS and China countries, like these days there's a tremendous amount of increase. Brute force attack, which is attempted on you, but it does not get through. Then the DDoS attack. So for me, these are all the inputs onto the core system, the core analytical algorithm that is happening. So what that algorithm should do as a part of automation, because if you think, it is pretty exhaustive for 2, 3, 10, 15, 20 people sitting and doing it manually. There are definitely chances of error. And then with this analytical algorithm should, as an output, give me cyber threat vector that is applicable to me with its severity, change management of internal demands and its implication. Then it should give in a controlled, applicable scenarios of patching and blocking. All the patches, including SAP notes and patches, all of them are not applicable to me. But here I'm talking about the security patches. So they all are not applicable. So the selective usage based on the severity to me, and then as a model. So initially it has to give it to me with a control to my system admin. If he say approves on certain scenario, it's getting implemented or applied automatically. Otherwise, SC increases to an extent that is, we can give a complete automation as a complete control of that, of applying to that particular patches. Then I think is the time which I see will take a year or so to happen. Then I think this is the way forward for automation in the information security to go. We have a ELK system, Elastic Logstash, Kibana. So that is the database is getting generated every day. So we are able to record, and we are able to have a historical record of all the events getting generated, what are their trends and behavior patterns of the threat as well. So going forward, in 6 months to 1 year, I think we should be somewhere where the automation is a very, very, achievable point.
Before we take the audience questions, a couple of areas would go. We would once go to Harish. He wants to share something on some of these incidents.
I would like to share my screen, if you will permit me, please. I would like to show you some of the emails and documents which will help participants.
Okay, so while Anand works that option out, let me get to Kanishk at this time. One of the points, Kanishk, you have raised about the importance of classification of data. Can you elaborate a little on that?
I think that's very important, that there will be a lot of noise apart from the regular data which we monitor. While people are working from home, there'll be a lot of noise. So for an organization to do data classification, to identify what is critical for them, it's very important, because once you have classified, then only it makes sense for you to apply rule sets, to buy licenses, what happens right now is we don't do classification and we straight away start implementing different tools, techniques, products, and there is a lot of noise which gets generated because of this. So important you classify your data and then try and maintain your PII inventory. There could be policies which could be enforced once the classification has been done. Now there are two ways of doing it. One is you look internally, you use certain amount of tool to gather data and then apply different techniques, which could be masking or keywords. The other way could be basically looking at from outside. The outside is what kind of data is actually flowing. Now, both these combination, if you apply both of them together, you could actually come up with various mechanisms where you can find out what is your PII. You can find out, what is really that needs to be protected, and create a policy in terms of implementing controls, and use different data classification tools. As Ashish pointed out, use a DLP. So data classification tools plus DLP could be a fantastic match. And there are a lot of open source commercial data classification tools which are available. Titus has an amazing tool. We have deployed Titus at many places. Other could be Bolden James is another one. And you can do your POCs and find out, and you can involve any consulting firm, big or small, who can help you draft the policies with respect to implementing some of these controls and be your partner.
Harish, you would like to add something to this?
Kanishk has mentioned is everything is good, but I will tell you generally what happens in our corporate office is we classify data that, example, if we have got 1 lakh customer database, who can access all the data at one, who can download it, who can print it, who can see only 10 documents or 10 email addresses at one. In case he needs 100 or 200, then the authorization is required from someone digitally. So we are working on all the solutions of central repository where we define that this database is only accessible to, say, sales or marketing or to customer feedback system or something like that.
Now, let's see. We have a couple of questions from the audience. So Anand, can we take up the first question from audience?
Yeah. The first question is from Mr. Ravish Jhala. He asked that with work from home environment, cyber attacks have increased, right? So what process or steps can be taken at organizational level as well as personal level to safeguard organizational and personal data and privacy?
It is all about education, how we educate customer or internal, external customers. We have to send them notifications about like maze attack, DOS attack, or different phishing mails which are coming. Someone is saying that I'm from World Health Organization. Somebody is saying I need donation, I need food. So a lot of phishing has started after this. We have to regularly monitor media, different websites to see what is right, what is wrong, and educate our end users. This is the way we can safeguard them.
Mr. Harish has told about, about the phishing attacks and the awareness. Apart from that, on top of it, users should be changing their Wi-Fi passwords. Make the password strong. Okay. Don't divulge into giving up the information, your personal information, as well as your organization's information. Don't click on emails which you think is from the unknown sender. Don't click on the links. So these are the very common things, but I'm reiterating because these are the smallest thing and these are the weakest thing. We often do that. Don't click on the tiny URLs. So, these things can be followed to a certain extent. This can be supported.
I'll add to the pointers which Mansur just mentioned, and obviously security awareness programs have to be, given more priority. So in your awareness programs, you can use the terminology called REST, R-E-S-T. I also learned it, and we have started using it, and it has started. People have started asking questions. Okay, Himanshu, I have received these kind of emails, not only on my official emails, but personal emails. What to do? So which showcases that yes, the programs are actually generating interest, and they are proving to be effective. So REST is the full form could be used as R if there is a request for a lot of data, or there are requests for sign-ins to provide some bank account details, passwords, and so on and so forth. E could be emotional aspect where it's something like if you don't do this, this will happen, something like that, or something on the sorts of donations, the Australian wildfire or the COVID crisis funds and so on and so forth. S are spelling mistakes, the typo errors, which are very evident in most of these spam emails. And T would stand for think twice. Think twice. Think twice before clicking on any link. Do a mouse over, see the link which is trying to get accessed. So all of us, we can use this methodology, REST. It has proven it's a good usage in our organization.
It's important that I would request if you think it is okay to all the IT heads, that please start putting external in brackets in the subject line of emails which are coming from external source, because oftenly it is seen that as somebody will pose as a chairman of your organization or a CFO of your organization and send a mail saying that hi, I'm busy, can you transfer fund at this thing and all those things to finance department. So they would, and the email ID will be approximately the same with a slight spelling change. So if a mail is coming from chairman or the MD of the organization, but it says external, so that raises the suspicion that this is an external mail. So I must be careful.
A couple of points from my end. It's very important that you carry out red teaming assessment. So before anyone else tries to hack you, it's important you carry out that exercise yourself. More like a red teaming assessment where people from your organization get a chance to look at the systems. Very few companies carry out red teaming assessment. That's very much important. The second aspect is you have to carry out phishing simulations. Phishing simulations which involve end users. So once a phishing activity is carried out across, you have to involve end users to make them aware how many of them actually clicked on different links, who was the weakest link, what they need to do as a best practice. Then also come up with a remedial measure where people have to undergo training. This could be self-assessments, quiz, or certain webinars they have to undertake to know more about security. Last but not the least, today dark web is accessed by hackers, but it is very important enterprise also start accessing dark web to find out whether their credentials are leaked or not, because whatever gets leaked is available today in dark web and people want to sell it through bitcoins. So very important you do threat intelligence to find out if your company's credentials or sensitive information is already lying there, and then what you can do to ensure safeguards. So do you need to change your passwords? Do you need to change your controls? Do you need to implement a new security policy or a strategy? Those are some key pointers one needs to really keep into consideration.
We'll take our next question, and the last question perhaps from Mr. Johnson David. He asks, while BYOD is picking up, wherein employees are being requested to utilize their personal devices, what are the recommended security methods in such a scenario without compromising or disrupting an individual's need to access social media and other available segments?
You cannot stop a user accessing social media or WhatsApp or XYZ. The only thing is you know MDM, mobile device management, so that you can classify which information from box A can be transferred to box B. Say box A is your official, box B is personal. And if you're transferring all those things, it can be checked by the administrator that what you did. The best way is to allow any device but have a MDM level security. This is what I can say.
So like Harish said, I'll just add a concept to it. I'm pretty sure many of us would know it. Containerization is the word, is the terminology where mobile device management would help organizations to ensure without disrupting the user experience, we have the security built in on the BYOD. And this is inevitable. IT, ITES and more matured industries have already seen it. Industry that I belong to currently, we are actually ongoing to the more of BYOD kind of concept, essentially.
I think, Johnson, your question is that, people who are given desktops in the office, how can they be given access, when they are outside the office from their personal devices? I think there are a lot of platforms which are available these days which can help you achieve that. You can give VDIs to people to access while they are outside the outside the office, and they can actually access the similar image of their office machines while sitting on their personal devices. There are platforms which are like Zscalers and Akamai, which can actually give you a zero trust based application access and PC and thin clients access, sitting from anywhere on any sort of device, without even for them to have an enterprise grade machine, keeping all the aspects of security, which is multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication, device posture, all of that. And so there are a lot of these tools are available these days which can help you achieve that.
Ashish has covered what I was about to say, but then just further to augment, before you get into those VDIs and all, because they will take certainly your organization, if it is not there already onto the platform, you might take a few 1 or 2 months to get there. So in the meantime, please ensure that any device that is which is not of your organization and connecting to your server and network through any media has a proper antivirus, and you should take self-declaration along with screenshot that antivirus is working in that particular device.
I think we have just sort of ran out of time also. I would like to thank all the panelists. This has been a very useful discussion. We are sure that the audience who participated would take back some interesting learnings, and which they can in turn apply to their organizations in a work from home environment. So thanks again to all of the panelists, and we would like to conclude the show here.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.